Hey, good morning, friends. Welcome back to your side quest contact. Now today, I'm going to ask you to grab your wooden stakes, your cloves of garlic, clutch that holy symbol tight, because we're going to continue our exploration through the dark realms of Ravenloft. Now we started the last video kind of going over some what it's about, some ways to get in there and use the Ravenloft campaign setting. And today I'm going to go over a couple different ways with which you can run this. Now, again, my persistent preamble is that these are just from my perspective, things that have worked for me. If you have found a third, fourth, fifth way, and you want to share, hey, awesome! Knowledge is power, and sharing it is cool. Now, so the first way we're going to talk about is more the non-traditional way, because the traditional way to run Ravenloft is the players are from another world, the mists reach out, grab them, and drop them into one of these dark domains, ruled by one of these terrible dark lords. Now, we're going to get into that here in a little bit. First, I want to talk about a more non traditional way, which is like this is the central campaign, right? Your player characters were born in one of these dark domains, they have grown up in one of these dark domains, and they traverse, they travel about, going about their business. This is their world, they're natives to this land. So, how does that happen, right? Well, first let's look at some character options because they do give us some player character options. Let's see here. Now, with the 5e Dark Gifts, honestly, I think they're a little light. I like the second edition Dark Gifts, Path to Darkness rules, because as players engage in their own evil acts, that attracts the attention of these dark powers, and they'll be, simultaneously rewarded and cursed. They'll gain a power, but that power will come with a curse. And the further they go down that evil path, eventually that could wind up with them, the dark powers reward them with a domain to rule. Here, you're so evil and cool, here's your own little spot of darkness to rule. Oh, but you're a prisoner, and we're going to torment you, we're going to give you a curse forever, but you're really powerful. So it's kind of a, good thing, bad thing. Mostly bad. So they've come up with some lineages, which I do like. Dampier, or Dampire, however you want to say that. It's a living creature still who's probably tasted some vampire blood, um, but still a living creature. They do have a hunger, and these are kind of in place of the races, like your traditional dwarf, elf, human. There's the hex blood. This is something kind of created by Fae. It has a Fae blood. Night hags or actually, it's more of a hag type situation. And let's see, many hexblood gain their lineage after making a deal with a hag. So you get some kind of cool benefits from that. And then the reborn. Now I've been using these reborn as NPCs, and it's been a really cool tool because they're not undead, right? So paladins, players who are thinking, oh, it's undead. No, no, it's not. It's kind of just creature type. Let's say what kind of creature type is it? Does it say? Humanoid. Yeah, so it's not undead. Now, technically, its body is no longer working. The heart doesn't pump, doesn't the lungs don't process oxygen. It's kept alive by animated magic, but it's not undead magic. So a player can choose one of these in lieu of, elf, dwarf, human, halfling, etc. Now, these lineages, though, do assume that you were something once. Now, what I like, and some rules, some DMs will say you get both benefits. Like you get like say for example, you're an elf who has become reborn. You get the benefits for elf, and you get the benefits for reborn. I don't do that. I don't like double stacking that. Like you pick one, like But now, cosmetically, you may look like an elf, but your stats and benefit are reborn or hexblood or dampire. Whichever one of those you choose, because that overrides the racial benefits, in my opinion. So you got some options there for different types of racial lineage options. Let's see. They had a couple new subclasses. the Bard College of Spirits. Now, when I ran the Curse of Strahd game in a live in-person game, one of the players chose this College of Spirits and used it very effectively. It's good for flair, good for flavor, and role playing, as well as it was pretty effective in fighting and dealing with challenges and such. Like whenever you kind of like summon spirits about you, and telling stories, and so they tell stories or whatnot, and that results in kind of like a magical effect. And I've been wanting to try this out, Warlock Undead, with the Undead Patron. So your patron is, either some powerful ancient undead being, like, like an ancient powerful vampire, a mummy lord, or a lich, or something that's not, not just a zombie or a wight, something that commands a lot of power. So those are kind of cool. I do want to try this as a player in a long extended campaign. And I haven't had anyone play this in one of my games yet, but I'm curious to see how it would work. So you got lineages, you got some new subclass options, and I believe there are some new background options as well. Haunted One and Investigator. Haunted One, like, yeah, because Ravenloft's a terrible place, right? So it's likely or possible that you have seen something so terrible that that's your background, and there are it's related to that. An investigator, think about, Sherlock Holmes, Abraham Van Helsing. So yeah, we already got some good ways to kind of have a campaign that's based here. Some specific player character things, and also what I like is I'm just going to go to Barovia here, but each of these realms has a talisman. So, like for example, Barovian Mist Talisman is a Barovian wine bottle, a Von Zarovic family crest, or Mark of the Raven Talisman. So, what do you do with these? Well, let's take a look here. See, the misty border surrounds all of these domains, right? The Lord of the Domain can close these on at will, and that manifests in a variety of ways, like a wall of mist, a wall of zombies, a wall of poison. Something that's impassable. Player characters just cannot get through. Now, if the Lord is not actively closing their borders, a player can wander into the mist. And if they do wander into the mist, several things can happen. And if they're carrying and focusing on one of those mist tokens, then they can arrive in that relevant realm. So you can have your players like choose which domain were you born in, and pick one or two domains that you have a mist token for, because that knowledge is secret. It's not something that everyone knows. Not everyone knows what the mist tokens are. The Vistani know. So if they're allied with Vistani, then they may come across a couple of those. They're not going to know every single mist token for every single domain, but each player might know one or two and have one or two and be able to use it. That would allow them the ability to traverse. They could leave Barovia. They could travel to another one of these realms on a mission, on a quest, and there's also various factions that operate throughout these realms. There are good factions that try to help those who are suffering, because everything is so evil and terrible. So there's a lot of suffering and a lot of suffering people to care for, and also there are factions that they're out there to push the agenda of their Dark Lord masters. So players could wind up involved or opposed to, one of those factions. Let's take a look here. Keepers of the Feather, right? Okay, so that's one of those factions. We got some other groups. I think there's a faction that kind of reveres Strad von Zervich as a deity. Oh, here it is. Yeah, the priest of Osibus. Osibus. Cultists channel the might of the dark powers and steal souls to gain ability to transcend death. They work to unshackle the first Dark Lord, Strad von Zervik, from the domains of dread. Okay, so they don't revere him, or they don't worship him, but they're working to free him. the Kargat. That's Darkon's secret police. There's a big realm called Darkon, and the one of the factions there is a secret police. Oh, and they happen to be vampires, so that's terrible. Having a secret police of vampires, the Kargat. So yeah, a lot of different factions that players could be bumping up against, either for good or bad. And each of the, each of the, let's see, the domains has their own set of mist talismans. So let's take a look at Darkon. What's the mist talisman? Ashes of a corpse, coin stamped with Azalin Rex's face, or tainted spring water. So if you were carrying one of these things and you walked through the border, the misty border of one realm, you were holding and focusing on this mist talisman, you could emerge through the mists in Darkon. So that's a good way to, run it if this was the central kind of campaign. The characters are born in one of these realms. They've grown up. They're aware. Oh, also, let's take a look here, because each of these realms. Let's see here. Here we go. They have characters, so we can ask some background questions to the characters born here. What, like for example, what part of Darkon are you from? How has your life been affected by the shroud? And there's, since the Lord of Darkon has disappeared, Darkon is kind of collapsing in on itself in the 5e lore. And how does your community prevent the dead from rising? So, like, the dead rising is a big thing, right? So, like, how do you deal with that? And each of these domains, or these domains, have their own, like, little character section here. Questions you can ask characters who were born there to give them some flavor in their background. So that's kind of the more non-traditional way. Actually having an entire campaign set throughout these realms. Now, let's talk about the more traditional way. Player characters are from another world. The Mists of Ravenloft, for some reason, usually because the DM wants to, reaches in, grabs those players and puts them in one of these worlds. Now, when 5e first came out, and I got the books and I was going through it, I was running a game, and the players, I think, were like around seventh to eighth level, maybe a little higher. They were high level. It wasn't a beginning. They weren't low level characters, probably tier three level. And then when I got this and listened to it, I say, okay, hey, I'm going to run this. We're going to run this, and because sometimes you got to make sure, because players are okay with that, right? Because players may be thinking that our game is going to be one thing, and all of a sudden, hey, what are these mists? Oh, hey, we're not playing that game I expected to play. So you kind of want to let them know in advance. And what we did was, I said, okay, so all right, everyone, we're going to, Ravenloft 5e is out. I'm very anxious to run this. So here's what we're going to do. And we went over the genres of horror. We kind of walked through them, talked about them. I copy pasted some excerpts into their chat so they can kind of read a bit. And I asked them, what of these genres of horror do you want to explore? And after kind of going over it and asking questions, they all kind of landed on folk horror. So I said, okay, we're going to start with folk horror. And then for the next, for between then and the next game session, that's what I was doing, kind of reading up on folk horror, and trying to get a feel for what that's going to be like. And with folk horror, this involves, like, we got a little intro paragraph here: traditions, beliefs, and perceptions that are passed down through generations and take terrifying twists. For those who ascribe to hidden traditions, sacrifice to strange gods, or placations to lurking monsters are everyday events. Now, for outsiders, in other words, the players, though these practices reveal the subjectivity of normalcy, societal truth, and taboos. So essentially, you're kind of like trapped in an isolated village, like a rural place, right? Society, this place is far removed from society. Something dense forest, something separates it from the rest of society. And because it's so isolated, it's developed its own weird systems of beliefs and cultures. And those systems of beliefs and those cultures and those, habits and traditions are going to be really strange to the players, to strangers. So, for example, we decided full core. So I went through the domains, and I was looking for a good full core domain, and we come to Tempest. So this is kind of where we set. This is where I said, okay, when the mists reside, this is where they're going to be in this full core place of this domain of nature's cruel secrets. So we had a good time here. There's a lot of now technically the players were a little higher level that what a green well what this Dark Lord was. So we had to kind of make sure, I had to flare it up. We had to focus on the horror aspect of it, um, and we had some really good scenes. The one of the interesting things about the village they found is that none of the adults in that village could produce their own children. What they did was they prayed to this figure called Mother Lorinda, who was a green hag in reality, and if Mother Lorinda decided to, she would create a child and give it to that family. Now, all of the children in this village had these weird little antler horns, right? And they were all very strange. You got a village full of strange-looking kids, with small antler horns growing out of their foreheads and such. And yeah, so that's what the players are encountering, and they're learning things like that the parents can't have their own children. We pray to this being called Mother, who delivers us children, if we're good, kind of like a perverse Santa Claus. And then so the players are investigating and trying to figure out what this mother is. We had a good scene with a big festival where they were like highlighted this citizen of the month, but then that citizen was later sacrificed to a monster out in the woods. So yeah, the players get to kind of deal with all that. Now, eventually, though, maybe I don't really recall how many sessions it took, but they find they find all the clues they need. They make their way out to find where this Mother Lorinda associates, um, and yeah, they eventually take her down. No, I don't know if they took her down. I think they made a deal. They're like, let us out. Or maybe she was like, "No, I'm gonna let you out because I don't want you in my domain." It was a while ago, but yeah, it was a good character, good game. And then after that, once the mist kind of took them from there, I asked them. I said, "Hey, do you want to do another one of these domains, or do you want to go back to the normal world?" And they're like, "Let's do another one. That was kind of fun." So I'm like, "All right, cool. What genre do you want to do?" And then this time they went to ghost stories. So like, okay, so I kind of went through the same process. I went to ghost stories. Kind of looked up on what ghost, read up on what ghost stories were about, how to run a good ghost story. And then for the domain, I chose Mordant, which is ruled by an old powerful ghost. And then once they went through those scenarios, dealing with that situation, then they decided, all right, yeah, let's go back to our world now. Okay, so they did everything here in Mordant. They were able to thwart or defeat. I don't really remember because it was a really long time ago. The ghost Dark Lord, then that which resulted in the mists breaking up enough for them to escape. So that's the more traditional way. Players get trapped here for a little bit. They have to go through some scenarios, find clues, deal with horrible things, have horrible things done to them in the process, and then eventually, they find a way to break a hold of the mists and get out. And there could be a variety of ways of breaking that hold. Now, traditionally, most people think of you got to kill the Dark Lord, but I like to think beyond that. You don't necessarily have to kill the Dark Lord, but maybe convince the Dark Lord to release its hold and let you leave, or distract and thwart the Dark Lord enough to the point where it can't concentrate and or for some reason it can't maintain its hold. So that's how I see Ravenloft. Now, if you thought of another way to run this, great. If you want to share it, cool. Always happy to learn new things. Um, and I do want to do a like a just a campaign, like Ravenloft based campaign. One day. First level characters. Pick a domain that you were born in. Pick two domains that you have missed talismans for, and then we'll see what the players like have, like what domains they can travel to, because of the missed talismans that they have access to, and what kind of adventures that would lead to. I think that would be kind of neat, and because you're leaving a lot of that in the players' hands, right? Okay, because they're deciding what domains they have access to. All right, so I think that's good for Ravenloft. For next one, we all right, because I'm when I was planning ahead for this exploration series, I'm like, how do I want to proceed? And it's like, I'm gonna start with Ravenloft. It's my favorite. That's what we're gonna do. And then I figured the next one I'm gonna go to kind of my second favorite. And when I say second favorite, I don't mean it's less of a favorite. I just mean it's another one of my favorites, which is Planescape. We'll talk through and walk through what Planescape's about. All right, friends. Well, thanks for hanging out once again. I appreciate your time. Thanks for spending that with me, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you next time.